Welcome, witches, to today's July reading wrap up. Let's try that again. Welcome, witches, to today's July reading wrap up. Let's focus and jump into what we read for the month of July. So we read for July 7 books. We DNF'd 1 book and had an average rating of 3.5 stars. And I am also proud to say that I read my entire TBR that I had planned for July in the month of July. Kind of. So I finished Six of Crows. I fell asleep July 31st reading like the last little bit. So I finished it August 1st. But I'm going to call it a win, and I'm going to go ahead and put this in July because you know what? We got to give ourselves a win sometimes, and I need it. Let's go ahead and jump into the one book that I DNF'd, and that is Becoming the Boogeyman by Richard Chizmar. I do have and have read Chasing the Boogeyman. Yeah, Chasing the Boogeyman by Richard Chizmar. And I enjoyed it, but it wasn't exactly my favorite. I really had no desire to continue on in the world, and I saw that this was coming out, and I was like, oh, maybe it will help. I'm like trying to understand my own thoughts on this because it doesn't make sense. I wasn't really curious. And I had bought it and been sitting on my shelves. I saw Leandra, the TBR, talk about this kind of recently, and I was like, maybe I should pick that up and see, because it's one that I'm like, I don't have a desire to read. I'm not really sure why I have it. And I started to read it. I tried to read it physically. I tried to do an audiobook. And the more that I just read it, I just was zoning out. I just didn't care. I wasn't following along. Like, even when I was reading it, I was like, yeah, all these characters. I just couldn't get invested or care, so I ended up DNFing this. And I think just the style of writing doesn't work for me. I do love a good true crime or that kind of style of writing. It just, I don't know, something about these books has not been my thing. And I'm officially just done. So I guess it is kind of a series. So could we call it we're done with the series if we DNF a series? Either way, it's not a series. I need to figure out how to continue and finish. That's all the ones that we DNF'd. Let's go ahead and talk about the ones that we read. These are not in any particular order other than just when I read them. After I did my mid-year book freak out, we kind of talked about some of the books that were on my 5-star predictions, some of the books that I was really anticipating. I was like, you know what? We need to pick this book up because I am so excited for it. And that is The Family Experiment by John Mars. And this is everything that I wanted it to be. I think it's more like a 4.5 to 5. So while it's close, maybe not 100%, I absolutely loved this. This is really interesting. It definitely has that, I call it sci-fi, but maybe that's not quite right, a sci-fi-ish thriller vibes. This is following a different groups of families in the future where you can have virtual children, and they go on the show called The Family Experiment, and each one is given this virtual child that they're going to raise from childhood to 18, and one person wins, and they get to choose, like, do you want to have an actual kid now, or do you want to keep your virtual kid? If you choose to have an actual kid, your virtual kid goes bye-bye. But because this is a TV show, people can watch them 24/7, and each character definitely has a little bit of a history, lots of secrets that are coming out, and you're learning maybe a little bit more of the sinisterness of the story. I think that the pacing of this is fantastic. I think it's quite intriguing. It has the right amount of reality television without being like ridiculous almost, if you will. I just really love John Mars' writing when it comes to this very sci-fi thriller. I love the one. What Lies Between Us wasn't necessarily my favorite of his. It was just kind of average, but these ones are so fantastic. And I think they're all in the same realm, which I did not realize, and there's more in it, so I'm definitely going to be picking those up. This is definitely for people who are going to like a very sci-fi thriller, a little bit of a play on what reality could be, but with a little bit of a fictional tale to it. Like, how do I say this? Something that's going to be a little too close to home. It's far-fetched and out there, but like you could also see the world getting to that place, and it's creepy and things are going just kind of wrong. Yes, absolutely adore, love this. This may have been my favorite book of the entire month. The next one, I'm going to talk about these two together. I ended up reading How to Seal Your Own Fate and How to Cheat Your Own Death by Kristen Perrin. These are the second and third in the Castle Knoll Files series. And I believe it's a finish. I do think How to Cheat Your Own Death is my favorite of the entire series. This one's definitely not the favorite of the series, and I've seen other people's critiques of that, and I would agree with that. I said in my shorts review that if you're like the first one, didn't like this one so much, but you can get through it, maybe go ahead and get onto this one, because this one being How to Cheat Your Own Death feels very full circle, feels very like you're finishing, and this it just feels very full circle in the fact that everything kind of wraps up, feels like it comes back to its home in a way that's satisfying. However, I still feel like there was maybe a little bit of a cliffhanger, like maybe if the author wanted, she could pull it back, but I haven't seen anything else coming out. However, this one did come out this year, but to me, I'm like, it almost feels perfectly finished. So I'm going to call this a finished series. If there is a fourth one coming out, we'll see. I'm not really sure. But if you really like cozy mysteries, this one is highly recommended. This is not as quite as funny cozy mystery as sometimes you may think of as a cozy mystery, but I really did like seeing Annie and Rowan Crane's relationship kind of develop. It never really gets too romantic-y, run off into the sunset or anything like that, but I do think it was satisfying. I gave both of those like a 3.25. Like I enjoyed them. I may or may not read them again, but not like a fave I'm going to be raving from the rooftop. The next one is an ALC I got from NetGalley, and that is Our Marriage is Murder. This one I had a lot of fun with. These are two authors, but they write together. It's a married couple, and they write mysteries together that take place in different locations. So they will go on these vacations to research their books and then they write them. However, one of them is like, you know what, I think we should finish out the series, make this the last. They're having this like 20-year anniversary of the first book, this like castle inn bed and breakfast place where it all started. So you're following that, and the mysterious deaths are happening. You need to investigate. And I really liked the writing, their investigative styles. It's mostly through the wife's point of view, and she suspects her husband's having an affair. People are suspecting her because she's like resentful towards this, and we're just going on this kind of journey. The way that I ended, I didn't expect that. There was a few times where a twist came up and I was like, okay, I kind of anticipated that, but I still anticipated that twist to go slightly different than I expected. So it's like I expected it but didn't expect it. The ending I didn't quite expect. I did really have a fun time with this. I really enjoyed this. I think the writing and pacing was really good. I think character development was good overall. So it's definitely one that I wouldn't mind reading again. I gave it a 3.75, which I think I had a better time with it than the Castle Knoll series. And overall, I just think that it was very well paced, very well written. The plot had different points. I really liked the tie-in to how the murders were happening with their story. It gave me a little bit of an Agatha Christie vibes. Not that I've read a lot of Agatha Christie, but they also reference Agatha Christie, so maybe that's why that kind of storytelling and vibes. And I just think that it was really good. Another one we read, I got to, is We Burn So Bright by TJ Klune. I'm a big fan of TJ Klune. I love that his stories are so heartwarming. There's a little bit of a magical element to it. This is following, was it Ron and Donald? Don and Rodney. They're an older couple, been married like 40 years. But the end of the world is coming, and they now need to take this cross-country road trip. I'm not much of a crier, but through this, there were moments where I was getting a little teary-eyed. My favorite part of the story is there's nothing crazy, outlandish, and wild that is happening. But what is happening is so eerily real. As you're reading with Dawn and Rodney on this road trip, they're running into different peoples of different ages, walks of life, different life experiences, people of all different shapes, sizes, backgrounds. And you get to sit with them for a little bit to understand how different everybody can take the end of the world. You're also seeing how different Dawn and Rodney are taking it, how they're working through this, the reason that they're going on this road trip. I think you can pretty quickly guess why, but it's so sad and so heart-wrenching. But I think also gives us, I don't want to say anything that's going to spoil it, but it just has such a like finding yourself, care for others that you usually get from a TJ Klune book. I think that this being so short was perfect because you got to spend just enough time with each of the characters and each of the people that they ran across. That ending is just heartbreaking because it is the end of the world, but it's like a happy ending with not a happy ending. It's very strange. I think it's very well written. I think the pacing is great, and I just love the conversations that you had with the different characters you were coming across, because some people were taking it well and some people weren't, and how different the world came together in kind of these moments of despair and end of the world and everybody knowing that it's coming and seeing and hearing it. I just think was fascinating because some of it was going so bad and some of it was going so good, and it just shows you just how unique and different humanity can be when we're all experiencing the same thing but react so differently. We need a coffee break. I love coffee. I love coffee for the taste, not necessarily the caffeine. And I found a decaf that gives me enough of that like rich flavor that it's not totally terrible. And I'm here for it. Let's finish this out. We are almost done. We have 2 books left. The next one is Startup Hell by Caitlin Rozakis. This is one that was on my radar. I think that the cover is hilarious. The KPIs due by end of day, human sacrifice, 12 p.m., death before decaf, all that. It's fitting that I'm drinking decaf, death before decaf. Sorry. And then my local book club chose this as our July book club pick. And how do I say this? It wasn't quite as funny as I was expecting, but there are definitely humorous moments. I did enjoy this. I did like that Luke is like this demon, but he's also so kind of goofy, but yet competent. He wants to enjoy the world. He like almost wants to have this like love of the world. And I think that that was, I like that, and we talked about this in the book club. I like that the demon was almost the least morally gray, because Morgan, who, let me start with, Morgan works at this startup company. The like COO is trying to summon this demon, but he dies during it. She finds him. She has a lot of, she's magic blind, but her mom is the kick-ass world saving demon slaying shadow council wizard. So her mom's like this big time demon hunter. She's just like got shadow blindness or magic blindness. So competency really is not her thing in magic. And she's now like, how do I gotta help you get Sim back before my mother finds you and like slays you and blah 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 blah. And as they're doing this, they get summoned back to hell when they're trying to summon him back. And she gets kind of mixed up in having to find a soul to save her soul. So she starts off very good and doesn't become bad, but she definitely becomes a little bit more morally gray. I really liked that comparison that the demon sometimes is the one that's like, change us, and think that that's, and maybe I'm overthinking this. Point is like, just because you're meant to be bad doesn't mean you are bad. Sometimes you can be really great and like lose your way and need some guidance back. And I thought that was really fun. The aspects of hell that they talk about, I think, are really funny. I guess they don't call it hell. It's they don't call it hell. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but I'm gonna look it up because brain fart moment. They don't call it hell. I thought those were the funniest moments, and I wish honestly that we could have got more than that. But there are definitely some moments that are funny. Towards the end, it starts to get a little bit repetitive. Even though it's not long and I was enjoying it, it still felt like I was reading and it was taking a long time to read. So that's kind of a weird feeling to have. I ended up getting this about a 3. I think that's fair. 3, 3.25. I did enjoy this. And Yeah, and it was funny at points. This is definitely for somebody who likes kind of maybe a cozy fantasy is a little bit, maybe not quite cozy fantasy, but fantasy, a little humorous, a little unserious, not intense. There's not intense world building in any way, but there is a little bit of world building in the sense of the hell, and that was kind of my favorite part. The last one is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I had borrowed this. I had a friend who wanted me to read it to know if she wanted to read it because she started to read it and was like, I just don't know if I want to continue. So I read it. I gave her her book back. I am going to buy a copy because I did find the story interesting. I gave it about a 3.25. Spoiler alert for next month, I ended up finishing Crooked Kingdom after that. And I do have my own copy of Crooked Kingdom, which you'll see in my August wrap up. And that one was more of my favorite. This is one that I could potentially see myself rereading. You're following Kaz, Nina, Inej, Jesper, Waylon, and Matthias. I think that the story is really good. In the first one, there's a lot more building. There's also this thing called Parem, Judah Parem, I believe is what it was called, that's coming into the world, that there's these Grisha who are essentially people with magical powers. There's different ones that can make things or heal people or kill people, different kind of facets like that. And this Prim amplifies their powers, but like then addicts them before it eventually destroys them. The idea is to go save the scientist who developed it, to find an antidote, put a stop to it before it essentially destroys the world. And you're following these group of people that are like the Six of Crows as they're going on this. There's a lot of ship time. I do think it's good. I think the first one was a little bit slower. This is definitely for somebody who wants character and world building because there is a bit of world building. It's not intensely world building. There's more character development, definitely in the first one. I think it's well written. I think it's a little slow, but not like overly like painfully slow. It was an interesting story. I really enjoyed the different character developments and relationships that are showing up. If you're somebody who likes a fantasy that's not necessarily super fast, lots of characters, lots of character development. It gave me a little bit of a Shield of Sparrows with more characters than like on a boat. The first one did. So if you like that, you may like this. A little less on the romance side than Shield of Sparrows. No smut, anything like that. Overall, yeah, I just think I started to get invested in the characters. I was invested in the story. I'm just gonna, you know what? I know this is in August. I'll redo it again, but let's just go ahead and talk about two Crooked Kingdoms, or Crooked Kingdom. So what I enjoyed most about the second one, Crooked Kingdom, was that you were with the characters enough, but yet there was still enough character building and continually learning about them in the past. But it was a little bit more action packed. It's like you did most of that character building and now the action's happening and you're seeing everything in real time. It gave me a little bit of a Sherlock vibes in some of the tricks and twists that Kaz would use to get themselves out of tight spaces. Let me tell you, the end of this, how dare you? It makes sense because everything can't be perfectly happy, but like, how dare you? If you've read this, you understand what I'm talking about with one of the characters. But overall, I think that it balanced like happy ending with sad ending and world building. I just think that this one was so much funner because there was so much more action, so many more situations they were getting in, more kind of, there was a little bit more world building because of the situations that they were getting themselves into, kind of just lended to you learning more about the rules of society, how the world worked, etc. That is my July reading wrap up plus the bonus book. Look at me go. Yeah, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye, witches.